Buckle up as we dive into the diverse and captivating narratives that make our channel an endless wellspring of entertainment. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for not letting my miracle baby niece be my flower girl at my wedding? My 27 female older brother and sister, both mid-30s, just welcomed their first child a year and a half ago after years of trying. After many failed attempts, sister-in-law was told that she wouldn't be able to conceive due to a medical condition she has, and they finally got pregnant. Since having my niece, the baby has been the center of attention at every family event we've had since she was born. Birthdays, weddings, family get-togethers, you name it. Now don't get me wrong, I love my niece, but it can get to be a little too much when my daughter-in-law goes on and on about how they've tried to conceive, complications they've had, miscarriages they've had, etc. Like, a little too much info. Many family members have commented on how it's a little bit excessive, but no one has said anything because they don't want to sound like an a-hole. Anyway, I'm getting married in the spring, and my brother and sister-in-law approached me last weekend about having my niece be the flower girl. Now, my fiancé, 35 male, has 2 children, 10 male and 6 female from his previous marriage. His son is one of his groomsmen, while his daughter has asked to be our flower girl when we told them the news that we were getting married a year ago, as it's something she always wanted to do, so of course we said yes. So, I explained this to my sister-in-law when she asked me about my niece. She asked if my stepdaughter can just carry my niece with her. I said, I don't think she'd be comfortable with that, considering she's 6. She then asked why I can't give that role to my niece and allow herself to carry my niece down as the flower girl. I said no, I already promised my stepdaughter. She then starts going off about how my lack of effort to incorporate my niece is disgusting to her. I should honor her in some way since I know how long and hard they tried for my niece. Now, I may sound like an a-hole for this, but I kind of got fed up and snapped and said, incorporate my niece how? By the time the wedding comes around, she'll be 2 years old. The entire family already knows your story about how long and hard you guys tried for her. What more do you expect me to do to honor her? She started crying and said that clearly I don't love my one and only niece and I'm letting her down. I said, of course I love my niece, and obviously she's going to be involved in pictures and stuff, but I'm not going to let my stepdaughter down by giving my niece a role she's too young to remember anyway. Well, now my sister-in-law and brother are peed off with me for not letting my niece be a flower girl, and are running around telling the rest of the family I don't love my niece. My mom has been trying to stay neutral, but thinks my stepdaughter would understand if I explained to her I need to give that role to my niece. I'm firm in my decision, though, and my fiancé is thankful that I didn't let his daughter down. Am I the a-hole for not allowing my niece to be the flower girl? I mean, she's gonna be 2. She's not going to remember. Nobody really remembers stuff from when they're 2. They're not making big, wild impressions. This is not the moment to give your niece, this kind of recognition and stuff. This is 100% your sister-in-law and brother wanting that attention, for their niece, and I'm certain they love her, and I'm certain she's their wonderful miracle baby, and they care so much about her, and for them, she is their whole world. But no matter how much of a miracle your baby is, folks, you gotta remember, that kid is only the whole world to you, and you can't expect that to just extend out to everyone. If you want your child to feel special and wonderful, you have so many opportunities to provide that over the years, and you don't need to take away what will be a wonderful memory for this 6-year-old stepdaughter. What a wonderful thing to be involved in that wedding, to help a stepdaughter and stepmother connect and stuff. Yeah, I'm sorry. It means way more to her, and the sister-in-law and brother are being a-holes about it. The end. Story 2. Entitled Mom Thinks It's Okay to Touch Pregnant Mom Gets Slapped and Arrested. So the cast is me, Rookie Cop, PM, Pregnant Mom, EM, Karen. So I just started my shift and I was feeling good. I had a good dinner, all my good partners were on shift, and I was jamming out to my favorite Backstreet Boys track in my car. Then it happens. Dispatch sends out a call about a disturbance at a local coffee shop in my area, so I take the call and zoom in. I pull up, and there she is, Karen. I take one step out of my patrol car, and she basically runs up to me. Now, Karen was 42 years old with that really short haircut, and I did notice that she had a big red mark on her cheek. Me, ma'am, everything is all right. Entitled mom in the most dramatic tone, thank goodness you're here. I was just attacked by a crazy woman in the coffee shop. Okay, where is she? Karen points to a woman in the shop. I tell her to wait outside. She doesn't. And I request an additional deputy to come out. I walk inside and see a young woman who's very angry and very pregnant. I would have to say like 7 months maybe. She's sitting at the table on her phone. I approach her and asked her what happened. Pregnant mom. So I'm in here getting a coffee, just minding my business, when that lady, points at Karen, walks up to me and starts touching my belly. I ask her to stop, but she keeps touching me. Then when the barista sets my coffee down for me, she, Karen, takes it off the counter, hands it back to the barista, and says it's illegal to sell coffee to a pregnant woman. Then she starts touching my belly again, saying that I am a bad mom. I ask her to leave me alone and stop touching me. She then tells me she is a mother and that it's okay. She got really rough touching my belly, and I got scared. When I tried to walk away, she wouldn't stop, so I slapped the bee to get her to leave me alone. I looked at Karen, who was standing by the door, rolling her eyes as the pregnant mother was telling her story. My partner shows up and walks up to me. Now, my partner is a no BS, short, southern, corn-fed, mud-raised woman. I ask her to hold it down out here. I talked to the manager and several employees behind the bar. They all confirmed what the pregnant mother said, and the manager even brought me back to the office and showed me the security footage. All of it confirms the pregnant mother's story, and on camera, it looked like Karen was getting aggressive with the pregnant mom because the pregnant mom tried to walk away and Karen wouldn't let her stomach go. I walk out to pregnant mom. Me. Ma'am, you want to press charges? Pregnant mom. Yes, please. I walk over to Karen. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to turn around and place your hands behind your back. What? You're under arrest. Side note, in my state, you can be arrested for intentional and unlawful touching of someone. Since Karen was both aggressive and kept touching this pregnant mother, she broke the law. You can't arrest me. It's not illegal to touch a pregnant woman. You should arrest the employees of this place. They were giving coffee to a pregnant woman, endangering the child. Ma'am, no, you cannot touch someone without their permission, pregnant or not. Second, there is no law that says a pregnant woman cannot drink coffee, so please turn around and place your hands behind your back. No, I am not getting arrested. I am leaving. I have to get home to my children. Karen turns to leave the store, and my partner steps in front of her with a try-me look on her face. Karen stops dead in her tracks. I took that moment, snatched her hands, and put on a pair of cuffs. Karen loses it. She starts trying to get away and screams. She is flailing so hard that she knocks off my body camera. I have to pick her up and carry her to my patrol car. When I get there, my partner opens the door, but Karen actually puts her feet on panel to stop me from putting her in. My partner rolls her eyes, grabs her taser, and zaps her leg. Karen shrieks and finally gets in the car. My partner, the saint that she is, says she does the paperwork while I take Karen to jail. So the whole ride, I'm getting told how I need to watch my back, how she knows the sheriff, how I'm going to lose my job, and how I have no idea who she is. I get her to jail, and she starts going off about her rights. She needs to talk to a lawyer, and she needs to be released right now. The jail staff was looking at me with that "what unholy nightmare did you bring us" stare. So I did my report and realized I still have 9 hours on shift. Luckily, the rest of the night was not that bad. Okay. So, folks who watch me enough know that I'm not typically the biggest fan of the police as a whole. I think it is very kind of set up that's very susceptible to corruption and typically can breed a lot of bad apples and whatnot. But I do believe that there are good individuals with good intentions at the very least. And I think we just found one because this poster, they did the right thing. I love that they did this. Because that woman, that entitled person, touching someone like that, a pregnant woman, like just touching her belly, and that is ludicrous. And then telling her what she can and can't buy, like, I don't understand how a person becomes like that. Just don't touch other people without their permission. It's not hard to do. I'm doing it right now. Look, I'm not touching other people. I go in public and I don't touch other people. Stop touching other people unless they say that you can. And for pregnant women especially, oh my God, carry tasers on you, please. Protect yourselves from these weird people that feel like they have a right to touch your belly, because that, if I was a woman and I was pregnant, I would be terrified of those people. And you would have every right to be, especially if they were like this. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for getting mad my artist hid their initials in my tattoo? This is a short one, names changed for privacy. I went to a tattoo shop in my area with a photo of the tattoo I wanted. It was one my dad had gotten to honor my past grandfather, whose father also had it. But the point is, it was important to me that the tattoo looked exactly as it did in the photo. I get to the shop, I explain everything, I pay, get the tattoo, and we're done. I think it looks awesome, everything's great, until a few weeks later when I showed my great-grandmother the tattoo. She's static, grabs my arm to look at and compliment it, then asks, "Who's AJ?" I ask her what she means, and she points out on the tattoo where the initials A and J, or maybe T, were hidden. I'm instantly peed, as my artist's name is Alice Trevor. She tries to assure me it's no big deal if I hadn't noticed it till now, but I still reached out to the artist sort of irritated. They told me the style of art I got is called traditional, and it's pretty trad for all artists who do that style to do it. I demanded a partial refund and they refused, so I complained to the owner, who made the artist give me a full refund. Now the artist is running a full smear campaign talking about moving shops and all kinds of crap. My sister says I'm an a-hole for pushing the issue, but I feel like at the end of the day, I told you exactly what I wanted, and you didn't do that. Am I the a-hole? I'm not an expert on this matter, but I do know that, yeah, a lot of, artists, any kind of artist, not just tattoo, but, painters, stuff like that, will, sign the paintings that they're doing, and some of them who don't want a really noticeable signature will just try and hide their signature within the artwork. And I think that's okay on art that you're making and then maybe just trying to sell or something. People are like, oh, their initials are on it. That's neat. But when you're commissioned to do art for someone, you need to let them know everything that you're going to do. You don't get to hide stuff within the art for them to be like, hey, I paid you for a specific thing, but you've tacked something else onto this. That's not what I commissioned you for. And there's some argument to be made for, well, that's how an artist, denotes their work or whatever. And when you're paying for an artist, you're paying for, some of their creative input and details. I think there's some arguments to be made there, but in the end, it's like, no, this is a tattoo. This is going on someone's body. And so you need to be very clear about what you're putting on their body, because it's pretty much stuck there. Yeah, you can get expensive tattoo removal or cover-ups, but no, you gotta let them know. So artists, if you want to hide your signatures on some tattoos, let them know beforehand, please. Story 2. My dad smacked me several times and I blew the F up. Hey folks, if it isn't obvious from the title of this story, it is going to contain some discussion of abuse from parents. And so if you don't want to hear stuff like that, just go to the time code that my editors put on screen here to go to the next story. I've been browsing this sub for the past couple weeks and recently experienced something I feel belongs here. For some context, I have been homeschooled since kindergarten and have been teaching myself for the past year. Edie, entitled Dad, EM, entitled Mom, me, my best friends, dog, OB, older brother, here it goes. I was downstairs in my room watching Hunter x Hunter. Around 2 a.m., my brother knocks on my door and informs me that my dad wants me to come upstairs for a Bible study. I refuse to do so because of thousands of hours of wasted time doing Bible studies, homeschool conventions, political conventions, and whatever other random BS they decided was required for schooling. After about 10 minutes of my brother sending back and forth messages like a mailman, and Dad started shouting from upstairs. Dad, if you don't get up here, I'm charging rent. Me, sure, that's fine. Dad, give me $50 right now. Me, I don't have cash at the moment. After that, it was silent for a bit. He then comes downstairs, unlocks my door, I have a stupid penny lock, and enters my room with a Bible in hand. My sister, brother, and mother follow shortly. He sits down in my computer chair. Dad, fine, we'll have a Bible study in here. I'm gonna leave then. I'll stop you. He then rolls the chair between my bed and the desk to block my walkway to the door. I jump over my bed railing and exit my room. I go upstairs and stand in my dining room for about 4 minutes until my dad comes upstairs shouting. Why are you being such an a-hole? Oh, I'm the a-hole? He smacks me pretty effing hard after I said that, and that's when the adrenaline kicked in. What the F? He smacks me a second time. You piece of actual crap. Smacks me a third time. I move forward and get in his face. Effing smack me again and I'll have more proof. He smacks me 2 more times, and that is when I really lose my crap. What the F is wrong with you, you effing sad sack of crap? Show me some respect. Shut the F up, you mother effer. After this, I shouted every insult I had in my vocabulary except seasucker. I still regret not saying that. He raises his hand to smack me again, but I hit his hand away and get ready to punch him in the face. He backed off about a foot and raised his fist to block it. Something about it was just so funny to me at that moment. This a-hole that I've been afraid of since I was old enough to think looked like he was scared crapless. I lower my hands and start walking toward my room to grab my phone. Where are you going? I enter my room while ignoring him, and he follows. My mom was still in there. She was silent for once, thankfully. I grabbed my phone, and my dad was blocking my way out once again. What are you doing? I am calling the police, you sack of crap. I'll kill you before they get here. Effing do it. I don't give a crap. What the hell is wrong with you? This isn't the first time he's threatened to kill me, but he always plays it off as a joke. I push him aside and go upstairs to leave. As I open the door, he comes halfway up the stairs. What do you think you're doing? I'm leaving, you delusional F. I go outside and stand on the curb and call my older brother. Older brother, hello. Hey, can you please come pick me up? Yeah, sure. I hang up and start walking up the street barefoot just to get away from that house. I reach an intersection and wait. Then I see headlights coming up the street. It's my effing dad. I bolted left down a street and hid behind some bushes before he turned to follow me. I sat there for a minute and waited for him to pass me. He passed by yelling my name every 5 seconds, then thought to myself, wait, why the F am I hiding from this D-head? So start walking back to the spot where I was originally waiting. On my way, my mom calls me. I answer. What the F do you want? Just calm down. F that. I hung up. I see my dad do a U-turn, then drive to me and stop. Get in the car! Shut the F up. Then he just drives off down a random street. I saw that as a chance to go back and grab my wallet, shoes, and headphones. When I got back to my house, I went straight to my room to grab my stuff. My mom was sitting on my bed. Once I grabbed my crap, I turned to leave. You shouldn't have disrespected him like that. Shut up, see? I leave, and my brother is outside in his car. As soon as I got in, I started sobbing and having the biggest panic attack of my life. My hands and legs went numb, then started hyperventilating. He tried to comfort me, but didn't really know what was going on. We went back to his house where he and my 2 other brothers live. That was about a week ago, and I've been here since. I don't ever intend on going back. Edit. To add, so people don't think I was a piece of crap, before this, I was by all means considered a good kid, mostly because I was bullied into submission anytime I questioned them. Also, entitled mom and entitled dad are anti-vax and anti-doctor, and haven't seen a doctor, as far as I can remember, since I was born. Yeah, there's a pretty hard line in the sand where there's, like, tough parenting and parents getting to decide, like, what you're going to do, like, nope, you're coming to this event because I'm the parent and I say so, where that just crosses straight over into abuse territory. And clearly the person writing this is, at the very least, a teenager and should have some autonomy to make their own decisions. And being forced into that, hit, and threatened, none of that's okay. That is all absolutely abuse. And that kind of stuff, A, I'm glad this person got away from it however they could. B, I would hope that they could call, if they are still a minor, Child Protective Services and have something done, put together evidence. Folks, if you're in situations like that, hang on to evidence however you can, because that kind of stuff can add up. And I know it doesn't always work out great, but sometimes it does, and you can get out of these really, really toxic, bad situations. And as much as that dad might try to play off the killing you and stuff, making threats like that to kids, especially after you've hit them, scares the crap out of me. So please stay safe out there. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife's friend she is too old and ugly after repeatedly asking my son to take off his shirt? My family had a small get-together at my house. One of my wife's friends is over. She's unmarried. I think she's 45 to 47. We aren't too close to her since she lives pretty far away. She was over our house and she started complimenting my son. My son is 19. It starts off innocent, but as time goes on, it gets more and more crossing the line. When we were out on my deck, she started telling my son to take his shirt off. What's the point of going to the gym if no one will see it? My son is visibly uncomfortable and tries to shut her down. She repeatedly is asking and is getting more aggressive with it. I interject and I'm like, "Hey, Kathy, I think you're a bit too old and ugly for my son." This got her upset really quickly, and she excuses herself to the bathroom and starts crying. My wife goes to comfort her, and then later she leaves. At the end of it, my wife is super angry with me for saying that I should have said, "Hey, Kathy, looks like you had too much to drink," or something else. I told my wife that Kathy, by the way, this is not her real name, works a corporate job. She has had training on this and that she knows better, and our son was uncomfortable. He is 18 plus, but he doesn't know how to deal with an adult, let alone someone saying that in our house. I told my wife flat out that if I was to invite a guy friend and he was to ask to see our daughter in a bikini, my wife would have called the police. She says it's different. I tell her that I was way kinder to Kathy than I would have been had a guy said something like that to our daughter. And I told my wife that Kathy needs to apologize to my son before she can ever come into our house again. Overall, I think I was fair. If Kathy had just said it once, and I said that I think I would be the a-hole, but the fact that she kept repeating it, that's why I said it. And I wanted her to get the message that yes, I am upset, that's why I included the ugly part. Alright, no argument that what Kathy was doing, inappropriate. Doesn't matter if the kid's 19 or not, doesn't matter if the kid's 20 or 30 or for her age. You don't keep asking someone to do that kind of stuff when they have said, they don't even have to look uncomfortable. If they just no, stop, leave it at that. That's harassment. So Kathy, absolutely in the wrong here. Now, calling her ugly, too ugly. I get that you're trying to diffuse the whole situation with a joke and you're kind of frustrated and everything like that, but I do have a problem when people bring looks into stuff. It just sends a bad message overall. I mean, I think it's kind of understandable. Like I said, you're frustrated. You've been telling her to stop it for a bit now, but I don't using, people's looks as a value of them in that kind of way. It doesn't come across great. So you were trying to protect your son. You were frustrated. I don't think that you're an a-hole, but I think the ugly part may have been crossing a line. I honestly would have just pulled her aside and been like, "Kathy, if you don't stop, you're going to have to leave. It's not okay." Story 2. Of child-free weddings and entitled parents losing their minds. My fiance and I are going to get married in a few months, and we've decided we don't want kids at the wedding. Kids are loud, they run around, they break things, and we don't want to have to deal with that on a day that's supposed to celebrate our relationship. We've assigned the roles that are usually performed by children to our beloved pets, My dog will be the flower girl, my fiance's dog will be the ring bearer, and my 2 cats are co-maids of honor. Our friend's boyfriend's sister and my brothers and their partners think this is adorable. Alas, our other relatives do not share this enthusiasm. Boyfriend's parents said they thought it was strange and were hoping that his cousin would be the ring bearer, but they've accepted it because they want us to be happy. My parents threw an effing fit and accused me of placing animals above children. I calmly explained to them that this was my fiance's and my wedding, and it really wasn't their place to decide who would be a part of it. Our pets are well-trained and well-behaved, which is more than I can say about our relatives' kids. My parents aren't coming to my wedding because I refused to follow a certain sexist wedding tradition, father giving away the daughter. My dad told me since I was robbing him of his moment, there was no reason for him to be there. Good effing riddance. One of my friends I've known since childhood is a mother of 3 and was going to be one of the bridesmaids. She was horrified when she learned that my dog and cats will be at the wedding party. Surely her 3 ill-mannered kids should have had that honor. She threatened to not come to the wedding. I made it easier for her by taking her name off the guest list. My cousin, who has 2 kids, told me rather smugly that she would bring her kids anyway. When she and her family were actually there, surely I won't be able to do anything about it. I told her I would have her husband, and their kids escorted out by security. That shut her up. My fiance's friend asked him to make me replace my dog with his daughter as the flower girl. He was warned to never bring it up again. This wedding will be a special day for my fiance and I, and we will not let other people's entitlement ruin it. Edit. Many of you expressed concern that the wedding will be too stressful for our pets. I assure you it won't be. First of all, in all 32 people will be there, all of whom our pets know and are comfortable around. Second of all, the ceremony won't be a traditional one that lasts over an hour. Ours will be over in 15 minutes. Our pets won't be at the reception, which can be overstimulating. Someone sent me a DM asking if the kids' feelings will be hurt. I doubt any child actually enjoys weddings. Plus, we'll be sending all children of relatives and friends gift baskets with toys, chocolates, etc. I think they'll be pretty happy. I fully accept that they want a wedding without kids. That's totally fine. I think that's great. Like, we had a story a few videos ago where they weren't letting a kid who was like going to be 18 at the time go to the wedding, but that kid also was making the wedding dress. And that felt a little off to me. This is fine. You're saying no kids, and it's a small reception. And honestly, I think the one thing that you should consider, though, is like for people who are like, I'm not going to be able to get someone to watch my kids and travel that far, so I can't make the wedding. Then if you're the one setting down those rules, you have to be okay with that. And it sounds like they are. It sounds like they're very understanding of people. And so, yeah, I think this is totally fine. You should be able to do what you want. And to the person writing this, your parents sound like jerks. That sucks. Like the fact that the father's like, I don't get to give you away, so like what? Are you sad that you're not going to get the dowry of a couple goats and everything? Like, I know it's a big tradition, but does it have to be? Like, seriously, sometimes we can call traditions into question and they can stop being traditions. That's fine. That happens all the time. Get over it. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for not saying anything about the underwear? My 20-year-old daughter and her fiancé are currently staying with us. I love my daughter, but she's very difficult and I can't stand her fiancé. I gave them a deadline to move out because I can't take this anymore. They got into a massive fight the other day while my wife was out. I guess a pair of my wife's underwear got in with their laundry and she thought he was cheating. I think the fact that she immediately jumped to cheating shows how bad their relationship is. She was waving the underwear around, and I recognized them because they had a floral print, but I just let this ridiculous fight go on. My wife came home after about 30 minutes and said they were hers. My wife asked if I didn't realize they were hers, and I accidentally laughed. My daughter burst into tears and won't talk to me. Her fiancé said we're effed and left the house, but my wife thought it was funny. I don't know these people. I don't know what they're going through, but yeah, you're the a-hole. I mean, you're kind of an a-hole, you know? I mean, oh, your daughter's difficult? Boy, I wonder where she learned that from. I mean, there's a chance you may have had at least something to do with it. Maybe not. I don't know. But, and you know what? Maybe her and her boyfriend or her and her fiance are really high strung and fighting more because they're dealing with the stress of having to stay with her parents who don't seem that welcoming of them. And so they're super stressed out about stuff. And this just happened to be a tipping point. I don't know. But it's the fact that you did know that and you let them fight for 30 minutes without giving any clarification because you made a judgment call that, well, if they're going to fight like this, that just shows how bad the relationship is, so I'll let it happen. Ha ha ha. No, you're an a-hole. I'm sorry. I don't think it was right, and yeah. Story 2. How I was almost trapped in an arranged marriage. Sorry this is so long. I promise none of it is boring. LOL. I grew up in a cult that believed, among other things, that women were the property of men and children were the property of parents. So as an unmarried daughter, I was basically a cherished slave. I ran the house, meal planned, cooked, and even homeschooled my youngest siblings, all while trying to homeschool myself through high school. Having grown up my whole life this way, I didn't even know the law would have been on my side if I had decided to defy my parents and move out when I turned 18. My parents constantly reminded me that until they gave me away to a husband, I was still their child and would obey them as the mouthpieces of God in my life. One day my parents told me they had received a phone call from the parents of another family we knew. Their oldest son had noticed me and wanted permission to court me, so per protocol the parents would talk to each other, then each talk to their kids and arrange the whole thing. My mom was beaming with pride, but I thought about it for a little bit and said I didn't want to do it. Mom's smile disappeared and she cried, "What? Why?" I gave her my reasons, very good ones, I thought, but my mom wasn't satisfied and told me I was not allowing God to work in my life and that I should just obey them and trust that God's will would be done. Being the good girl I was, I relented and said yes. Then followed a week or two of awkward family gatherings between our two houses because this version of courtship never allowed for the couple to be alone together. I tried to ease the tension by telling funny stories and encouraging other family members to talk, but only received stern rebukes from his mother, who very clearly did not approve of me. Once she said, "We don't believe in practical jokes, so we are not impressed by that story." I mumbled that I wasn't trying to impress them and they could talk about anything they wanted, but no one did. Another time I was alone with his mom in the living room and she stated, I only had 2 requirements of the girl he chose. 1, that she come from a good family, and 2, that she knew her Bible, and you have both of those, so I'm not going to say anything. I was confused at feeling so rejected when I didn't even want this in the first place. I mean, really, who was courting who? Then I got a job offer as the church receptionist, and my parents told me his parents had called them again and said they did not approve of women working outside the home and didn't want me to take the job. We believed the same way, except it was after the woman was a mother. Before she had kids, it was up to her father or husband whether or not she could work someplace else. This was a strange situation where my father allowed it, but the guy I was courting didn't. My parents told me to call him and get his permission too. I thought that phone call went well. He basically said he was not my husband yet and I should follow my own family's rules. He didn't mind and was okay with it, so I happily accepted the job. The next day, my parents told me his parents had called and canceled the whole relationship. It felt weird to get dumped without even ever hearing from the guy dumping me, but it solved my problem, so I moved on, a little confused, and definitely not in the mood for anyone else to court me. 2 years later, at 19, I still wasn't married, shocker, and his family thought that meant God was saving me for him. The whole scenario repeated itself, but this time my dad insisted that the guy court him first so he could decide if he was even good enough for me before my heart got broken again. My dad told them until he made a decision one way or the other, he did not want any of them to contact me and tell me what was going on. The guy decided no contact couldn't possibly mean letters, so he wrote me a 5-page apology for dumping me 2 years ago before and confessing that he had been falling in love with me and wanted to know if it was worth his time to even get to know my dad. My parents saw his name on the envelope and confiscated the letter before finally deciding it was too late, and they explained the whole thing. I was honestly insulted that a guy I had barely seen in 2 years would say he loved me, but doubted if it was worth his time to follow my family's requirements to court me, especially after the last time he tried, his family made me feel like trash. We agreed to meet at a local restaurant and agree on the terms of the relationship and decide if we even wanted to try it again. I sat on one side of the table with my parents on either side of me. He sat on the other side with his parents on either side of him. Felt like we had lawyers. His dad immediately started yelling at my dad for denying his son and saying it was so obvious that I wanted this and he was holding me back. My dad is a quiet man, and he sat there like an angry stone while this man yelled at his face in the middle of the restaurant. It got so heated and embarrassing, the guy who liked me excused himself to the bathroom to throw up. While he was gone, his dad also said if we didn't accept his son, there might never be another guy to come along and marry me. This made me laugh because I wasn't that desperate to just accept the first guy to ask just because I was scared no one else would. I didn't care if I ever got married or not, even though I didn't dare tell anyone else that. The evening ended with an agreement that we would pick up where we left off. We thought that meant more courtship. They thought they already did courtship, so now it was an agreement to get engaged. The mistake quickly revealed itself a few days later when another guy friend I had, new guy, emailed my dad himself and asked permission to court me. My dad told me I should tell the guy I was courting and ask him if I could stay friends with a guy who liked me but who I had rejected. The guy came up with what I thought was a pretty good plan. My dad would tell him I was already courting someone else, and then I could introduce him to some of my other friends, and then maybe he would leave on his own. I thought that was brilliant, and my dad spent the rest of the evening writing a tactful reply to the new guy. The guy I was courting was now aware that I had friends who were not female. Their family believed guys and girls could never be just friends, so I was essentially cheating on him with 20 other guys. He called me the next morning, 6 days after I had agreed to this courtship, and asked my permission to ask my dad's permission to ask me to marry him. Basically the lamest over-the-phone proposal ever. He said he was in love with me and we didn't have to get married right away, that I would just be his and have a ring on my finger so no one could take me away from him. I told him I was flattered that he thought he loved me and wish I could say I loved him back, but I didn't. It had only been 6 days and I haven't even decided how I felt about him yet. His voice changed instantly, and he angrily snapped, asking if I was still talking to that guy who also liked me. I was shocked. I had never seen this side of him before. That's why it should take longer than 6 days to find a spouse, kids. I tried telling him that my dad had only just replied to his email and I hadn't had a chance to introduce him to my friends yet. He said, "That wasn't the plan. We agreed you wouldn't talk to him anymore." I shut him down and said, "Whoa, I'm only doing what you told me to do. We are not engaged yet. I talk to lots of guys and it doesn't mean anything romantic. We're just friends." His voice quieted down, but still sounded bitter, and he said, "Well, if you can't agree to not talk to other boys and only talk to me, maybe we shouldn't call this courting right now." "Maybe we shouldn't," I replied. We agreed that I would take a week to think about it and call him when I'd made a decision. Marry him and forsake all the male friends I had known since I was 5, or cut off the relationship for the second time. I told my parents what happened, and they tried to convince me to just do what he wanted, but I finally yelled at them for the first time in my life that I was not going to marry anyone I did not love. My dad was angry, but my mom sent me to my room and said we could talk about it later. I had a week after all. I was very sad. The only reason I was considering it was because my parents insisted it was God's will, and I really wanted to do what God said. But at the same time, this family seemed even more strict than my own, and I would also miss all of my old friends. There was so much to think about. About an hour later, I got 2 calls from this guy's mother, which I let go to voicemail. I didn't want to talk to her right then. Next thing I know, my little brother came up holding the house phone saying it was the guy's mom and she demanded to talk to me. She scolded me for a long time, saying I had cheated on her son and that he had called off work this morning because he was worried sick over calling me and asking me to marry him. She all but called me a harlot because of all the guys I was talking to while I tried to tell her I was not in a relationship with any of them. Guy's mom, you cheated on him. You're in a relationship with every person you meet. Me, but not every relationship is a romantic one. Guy's mom, between guys and girls, yes. For example, my husband is my best friend and I would never talk to other men and neither would your mom. Me, oh, yes, she would. She talks to other men all the time, and she's friends with lots of people. Guy's mom, well, I'm shocked. I honestly thought better of her than that. She demanded to know why I needed 7 days to pray about whether or not to marry her son. Guy's mom, God doesn't take that long to answer prayer. It sounds like you already know how you feel, and you're just too scared to say it. It should take a day or two at most. Me, look. Your son agreed to let me have a week. If he can't do that, then the answer is no. Guy's mom, well, let's not be too hasty. I thought, who's being hasty? I wanted a week. She then told me we would go talk to her son and her husband and see what they wanted to do. I hung up the phone and threw it across the room. I had never been accused of anything like that before, and I curled up in a ball and cried. My mom heard me and came to see what was wrong. When I told her everything that horrible woman said to me, and I stated firmly that I never wanted to see anyone from that family again. She called my dad up and he was angry at me for being accused of being a harlot with all these boys, but told me I was not allowed to make my decisions until a week was up, because that was what I had agreed to. Just silently told myself they could all think what they wanted, but I knew my answer was no, and it would still be a no a week from now. He called the family back and told them none of them were to contact me in any way, shape, or form for the whole week, and when I had made my decision, he would call them and let them know what it was. They were angry, but they never contacted me again. Almost 2 years later, I married the new guy who had emailed my dad, remember him. He was not a member of our cult and taught me how to think for myself. Our courtship looked a lot more like dating than anything else, and it made a lot of people upset, but we didn't care. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary and we have 3 sons. I feel like I was rescued. Too long didn't read. I grew up in a cult. My parents wanted me to marry some guy I barely knew. I put up with it for way too long, until it just got too ridiculous. Oh my gosh, I am happy this story had a happy ending because, I have my problems with some religions, but they can be, wonderful communities for people and, ways for them to explore beliefs and all that stuff. But yeah, no, this one definitely 100% a cult. Anything that says that women and children are property, nope, I'm not going to respect that. I'll acknowledge it. I'll not acknowledge it exists, but I'm sure as hell not going to respect something that would put other people as property. No. And the arranged marriage thing, I've heard some arguments in favor of it. I don't like it at all, and I don't know if I agree with those, but it's not an area where I'm an expert. So, boy, this is just a lot, and so many people making decisions for this poor young lady. I'm glad she got out of that cult, found someone who taught her that she is just as valuable a human being as anybody else. She sounds happy, like most people who get out of cults, so good for her. And for anyone else who thinks they might be in one, run. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for throwing them out of a house that we own? They thought their son owned the house, not us. My wife and I bought a 4-bedroom house in Pennsylvania that my son lives in. Our son went to college in Pennsylvania and wanted to stay in the area, so we bought the house as a second home. We live in New Jersey and commute into Manhattan for work. We figured that he would have a place to live and we could visit every so often and spend some quality time together. We pay the taxes and services/maintenance on the house. Our son pays for his groceries and the house utilities. All was going well for a few years. Our son meets a girl and they get serious. We met her and she seems nice enough. They announce their engagement and she moves into the house with our son. Now for the problem, the wedding. We held a little get-to-know-you barbecue at the Pennsylvania house. My son and daughter are there, as are our son's fiancé and her parents and sisters. We all seem to be getting along well. My wife, daughter, and the fiancé go into the house along with her mother and sisters and my son. A few minutes later, my wife and daughter come out and are really upset. They come over and tell me we're leaving and driving back to New Jersey. I tried to find out what happened. Once we got back to New Jersey and they calmed down, they told me that our son and his fiancée, along with her family, don't want us at the wedding. According to what I was told, we're not their kind of people. I was livid. I called my son and asked him what the hell this was about. He tells me that her family feels that we are not good enough and will embarrass them at a family wedding and that we are all uninvited from the wedding. I let a week go by to calm myself down and drive back to the Pennsylvania house. The new future in-laws are in the house along with the fiancé. It appears that they all moved into the house. They ask me why I'm there. I tell them that since we aren't invited to the wedding, I was coming over to talk to my son. They tell me to leave their house. I lost it and told them that they had 30 days to get out. Tell my son I'm selling the house and he could find somewhere else to live with all of you. I go to a realtor in town and list the house for sale. They call my son at work and tell him what I said. Apparently, they thought that he owned the house. He calls me and asks why I'm selling his house. I tell him I paid for it along with the taxes on it, and it is mine. He was living there rent-free, but since he doesn't want us in his new life, he has to get out. I tell him the same as I told his future in-laws. They have 30 days to get out, then I'll get a lawyer and get them evicted. Am I the a-hole for taking a hard stance on this? He is my son, but the in-laws seem to take over and we no longer count. The extent that you have to go to make me side with someone who can just afford to buy a second house, aside from their Manhattan job and this and that, I'm not inclined to side with people who are like, we wanted to be a little closer to our son while he was going to college, so we just bought a second house. I am not inclined to side with people like that. I have prejudices. I shouldn't. We all kind of do, though. I hear about people with that kind of money, and I'm like, no. But immediately, I'm kind of on their side. You got this fiancé, you bring their family in, and then you're like, oh, by the way, you don't get to come to our wedding. You're not our kind of people. What a gross thing. And while you're staying in that house, and don't get me wrong, maybe this family sucks. Maybe they suck hard. I don't know. But if they do, then you still shouldn't be like, oh, my family sucks, but I am just going to try and keep the second house that they bought and assume it's mine. No. If you want to distance yourself from that family because they suck so bad, then you're not also going to, accept something from a free house from them. You don't get to play, both sides of that. No, absolutely not. So, yeah, maybe this family's awful. I can't possibly know that, but from what the information I'm giving here, no, these people probably aren't the a-holes. Hey folks, huge content warning for some pretty extreme mental abuse of a child and threats of self-termination. It's a pretty uncomfortable story to hear, so if you don't want to hear that kind of stuff, skip to the Times code that my editor has on screen now to get over to the next story. Story 2. Mom threatens and fakes self-termination to make a 10-year-old take her side in fights. When I was 7 years old, I went to the bathroom to pee just to find a bathing mug 20% filled with blood. I ran outside crying in panic to Mom. She said it's her blood she removed with injection because Dad didn't want to take her to an orchestra. Similarly, she would accuse Dad a lot of having an affair. When they would be fighting, she would tell me not to talk to Dad or she would jump off our house. Young me would be very scared. I didn't want to lose my mom. She would say, your dad would marry another woman and you will have a stepmom. She used to say stepmoms abuse their stepkids, the irony. They beat them and deny them food and basic needs. One evening when I was 10, Mom was on the roof till 11:30 p.m. I found her roaming around, not sad or anything. She said she was just bored. We only had a one-bedroom me and my parents shared. I went to sleep and Dad was already asleep. Mom finally came down at 11:45 p.m., took out something from the cupboard, ate it, and she came to sleep next to me. She told me she had swallowed 4 Valium pills, high-power sleeping tablets, and said, your dad can marry whoever he wants, I am out. She casually went to sleep, I was very scared, crying. I didn't know what to do. I hugged her and couldn't stop crying for an hour or so. She finally woke up, went to the bathroom, and I could hear the puking sound for 10 to 15 seconds, and she came back to sleep. She didn't say anything. I was still not sure whether I would have a mom after waking up the next day. But she was completely fine and acted like nothing happened last night. I used to have nightmares for months after that in which either my mom has died or she has left the home forever. When I was in severe depression and had to drop out for a year from school, Mom used to say, "You and I should both drink poison because you are useless anyway." She would make jokes like, "Watch out, I might have mixed something in your food. Why do you keep living? You're not doing anything for your family." I am no therapist, but it seems pretty apparent to me that this mom is dealing with some pretty severe mental issues of her own, be it, depression or, something else. I can't say for sure, but as much as that is certainly an explanation of her actions, the fact that this is affecting a child and, I am sure part of what probably, has contributed to this poster's own depression and issues that they've had and stuff, like, this is untenable. I can't imagine what it would be like to grow up around someone doing this to you. This is extremely abusive behavior. And this mom clearly does need some help, but she also needs to have this child should have been taken away from her. And I'm not saying that I don't want to call her a bad mom because she is clearly struggling with a severe mental illness of some sort. But when it's affecting a child, it's bad parenting. This is so bad for this kid, and it would be better for everyone if, they could have gotten some help. I don't know, folks. If you're in a situation like this, please reach out to someone that you can trust. And hopefully something can be done. I hope it can, but take care of yourselves. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for purchasing my guy friend his dream present, outshining his girlfriend? My guy friend, Tom, has been one of my best friends since college. We're in our mid-20s now and are both currently in committed relationships with long-term partners. I've never had feelings for Tom, nor has he ever had feelings for me. Since college, Tom has been a huge watch fanatic. 2 months ago, he was showing me this stunning vintage watch and made an offhand comment about how he would die of joy if he somehow got his hands on one. Very coincidentally, I was in New York City a few weeks ago and stumbled upon this watch store that just so happened to have the exact one Tom wanted. It was expensive, I won't lie, at about $2,500, but I decided to get it for his 21st birthday. To me, it was basically fate, lol. My boyfriend and I do very well financially, so this was something that I could personally afford and wanted to buy for Tom, especially knowing how happy it'd make him. Tom has a tradition of hosting a dinner party at his place for his birthday and then following that up with cake and gift opening. I told him before the dinner that my gift was a huge surprise and asked if he could save it for last, and he agreed. His girlfriend ends up going first, and she gets him this gorgeous sweater that she crocheted for him and a book that he's been wanting, which I thought was super thoughtful and lovely. Last, it was my gift. When he opened it and saw what it was, he literally screamed, hopped over a bunch of people, and squeezed me in this huge bear hug. I was so happy to see him happy. It genuinely filled me with so much joy. He even got emotional, and I saw him swipe a few tears. He also said that it was the best gift he'd ever received. The whole time, his girlfriend was only slightly smiling and stayed quiet. The next morning, I get a text from his girlfriend that essentially said that although she appreciated my thoughtful gift, she thought that it was a bit out of touch and lacking awareness. She admitted that Tom had also told her about the watch and she wanted to get it for him, but it was way out of her budget. She accused me of knowing this, I had no idea, and still getting it to rub it in her face and to outshine her. She finished by saying how she felt like I had overstepped a boundary by getting the gift and would appreciate me not doing anything similar to it again in the future. I responded and told her that while I could see her point of view, I was just trying to do a nice thing for a close friend of mine. I asked her, wouldn't you rather he got the gift and seen the happiness that it brought him than him not getting it at all? She responded that that happiness was only shared between me and Tom and no one else, that she felt hurt by my actions. Only my boyfriend knows about this, and he's on my side, but thinking through it all again, I do see how I could have overstepped, but my boyfriend says that it's not my job to apologize for her insecurities. So, am I the a-hole here? It would take a pretty incredible leap for someone who's gotten someone a $2,500 watch that they've dreamed of to be considered the a-hole in a situation. And you're not. You're not the a-hole. You're a good friend. You're very secure financially, so it was a reasonable thing. Clearly, Tom is a friend that means a lot to you, and that's great that you were able to do this for him. I mean, $2,500 for a gift, even in the best of times for me, that is wild. But if it's something you can easily afford and everything, that's great. And there's nothing wrong with friends doing that for friends. I'm at least glad she didn't go the route of like, you're trying to steal Tom from me or something, because that's a whole thing I just can't get into. But also, folks, you do have to realize that you can't provide everything for your significant other. And it's okay for them to get joy and fulfillment from other people outside of your relationship. Even if it is this big grand gesture that you can't really compete with, your relationship and intimacy and love for each other more than makes up for that, or at least it should. And so I know that this girlfriend is just coming from a place of insecurity, and financial insecurity is a very real thing for some people, and I sympathize with that. But I think she has to realize that you're not trying for anything here. You're not trying to outshine her. You're just trying to make Tom happy, and I think that's great. And she should realize that she can make Tom happy in so many ways that you and no one else can. So that should be good enough. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.